Hello, everybody. Again, I'm Greg Granditz, Director of Eastern Operations. Good to see so many friends here and clients. The weather turned out to be great. I lit a candle at church last Sunday, so it looks like it paid off. I think next Sunday will be the lotto numbers. But I'm excited to have so many turn out so many people here. This facility, I don't know if you've heard, but last May we had a flood. And actually we had about 18 to 20 inches of water through both these buildings. And it was an amazing feat of the staff and Jared and the maintenance crew into just the reconstruction. We spent over $6 million in damages were done. And those high-res mass specs, if you take a lab tour and you go to the back, you're going to see the high-res mass specs. And right now they're up on these, that look like coffins, they're on these higher grounds. So if it floods again, we're safe. But it's interesting, those units are worth about $750,000 a piece. And we found out the electronics they place right on the bottom. So, but anyway, it was about 2 to 3 months of solid construction. The lab didn't miss a beat. We actually had 10 people at the curb. It was almost 4 to 5 feet of water. We had 10 people actually swim to work. So it talks about the dedication. To get your samples reported on time. But no, the lab has really recovered very well, done a fantastic job, and the performance of the lab right now, we're running 97% on time. We're running an average 5-day turn. So again, hats off to the staff, and just a fantastic job through a very tough time. And Rationale, I want to point out, you probably know him. He's our global environmental manager. Raj spends half his time in Australia and half in the United States, and we have the pleasure to have him till right after Thanksgiving, then he goes back. So take a deep breath. But, and Hoy Van, our lab director, Hoy's over the Dachshund side as well as the traditional environmental. I'm going to point Hoy out. Again, 2 key people. As you know, our guest speaker today is Ann Strahl from the TCEQ, discussing the adoption of EPA 5035 in the state of Texas. A little bio on Ann. I got to get my glasses on because I can't read. But Ann is currently the program manager, coordinator for the Quality Assurance Program in the Remediation Division of the TCEQ Commission on Environmental Quality. Ann joined the TCEQ in 1990 as the project coordinator in the Texas Superfund Site Assessment Program. And currently is the lead QA specialist for the PST, Superfund, Brownsfield, and PASI programs in the Remediation Division, and provides QA support to the Corrective Action, VCP, and Dry Cleaner remediation programs. You're busy. You know, I've known Ann for over 12 years. Had the pleasure to work with her on many technical panels as well as many environmental projects at the TCEQ. And Ann has always been a great technical resource for me and for all of you, I know. And she's always been available, accessible. As of today, she's actually off. It's Veterans Day, and she came on her day off to present. So she accommodated us. So thank you, Ann. With no further ado, introduction, I'd like to introduce Ann Strahl.
And I'm going to talk to you about the required use of 5035. As many of you know, we tried to get this requirement in place about, 10, 15 years ago, and we were not able to just because of issues, let's say. So we're finally getting it in place. I know most states are already there. They're already requiring it, and so we're one of the last ones to be requiring it, but it is a requirement. And so I'm going to walk you through the requirements. We have some guidance on the web. I'll give you the web page. You've probably already seen that guidance. But we'll be updating that guidance to address some of the questions that are coming forward that you guys are having to deal with as you're trying to implement it. So it will, the guidance will be updated. And as you have questions, if you would send them in to us so that we can address those in the guidance, that would be helpful. Okay, here's my contact information. If you need to contact me, just send me an email or call me, either one. We also have a tech support webpage, mailbox that you can send a question to as well, and it'll get to me or one of our QA folks. Okay, there's a required use for the method 5035, and to meet that requirement on or after January 31st, any sample you collect for volatile analysis that's going to be prepared using purge and trap must be collected using 5035 procedures. Okay, to make it real clear, samples collected before January 31st, January 1st, 2016, can be collected in bulk, but we recommend you transition over to 5035 as soon as you can. We've had the recommendation to use 5035 in place for the 15 years we've been trying to get it a requirement. So most of you should have already moved to that point. But if you haven't, you have to as of January 1st, 2016. So if you collect samples next week, say in November, and you use the bulk procedure, those data will be accepted because it's before the January 1st deadline. If you collect it January 1 or after, and it's collected in bulk, we will reject the data. Okay? And comparing the results, let's say you collect data if you collect data this week using the bulk procedures, and you get your results back. And then you're still working on that project. You go out and collect some more samples using 5035 in January. The decision will depend more on the 5035 results than on your previous results. So if they don't agree, let's say your bulk sample data say you're clean or close to clean, and your 5035 data show that you still have work to do, we'd say you still have work to do. Okay? Okay. And again, if the data are collected on or after January 1st and they're collected in bulk, we will reject the data. There are some exceptions, and the exceptions would be when a collection of the sample by 5035 is not possible. Now, what happens to the sample once it gets to the laboratory? If you collect it in bulk, so let's say you've got a material that you don't think you can collect using 5035 procedures, and you collect it in bulk, when it gets to the lab has to process it using 5035. So that means that they're going to do a methanol extraction, or they should do a methanol extraction. That's going to elevate your quantitation limits about 50 times, which may make your data not usable anyway. So that's what the labs should do. Now, what the labs have been doing is they've been taking the sample you send them and then taking it and putting it into a Voa vial like a 5035 sample and processing it. They won't be allowed to do that in the future because that's not a 5035 procedure. So if you have a problem in the field with the material you're collecting and you don't think you can do it by 5035 procedures, I recommend you contact your laboratory and explain to them what your matrix is and what your problems are, and ask the lab to give you some guidance on how to collect it. And I'll walk you through some examples. Now, for samples that you're collecting for your own personal investigation, like you're out there just trying to screen samples or trying to make some decisions that are not compliance decisions, we don't care how you collect those. But if you're trying to demonstrate compliance with the rule, 334 rule, the 335 rule, or the 350 rule, you need to follow 5035 procedures. That's the PST rule, the risk reduction rule, and the Texas Risk Reduction Program rule, or TRP rule. Okay? There are some handouts out in the back, or back in the back, but we don't have enough for everyone, so we're going to send you, I believe someone's going to send the PDF copies to people who want it. Okay, and the rationale for using 5035 or making it a requirement to use 5035 is prior to 1997, SWA 46 Methods Manual had the procedure 5030 for preparing soil and water samples for purge and trap, using purge and trap for volatile analysis. In 1997, EPA revised the methods manual, and in that revision, sorry, I'm going to move this down. Is that better? Can y'all hear me in the back? Okay. In that revision, they removed the soil solid component out of 50/30, and they introduced the 50/35 method for the solid samples. And they eliminated the bulk procedure for VLCs when the concentration in the solid samples is at a low concentration or the concentration is unknown. For those of you familiar with 50/35, if you anticipate the concentration is high, then the bulk procedure is okay because the lab will do a methanol extraction and your quantitation limits will be elevated, but you've got high concentrations anyway. So the key point is that the only method available in SW 846 for preparing soil samples using purge and trap is 50/35. Like I said, we have wanted to have this requirement in place for some time, and now it's becoming kind of a twofold. The laboratories are getting, why this has become important is the laboratories have been, because of NELAP requirements, they've been, audited by the laboratory accreditation program, and that portion of TCEQ is dinging the laboratories when they don't process the samples using 50/35. If the samples weren't collected properly, they've got to tell the data user that they were not collected properly. So we're trying to align both of the laboratory accreditation requirements with what we're, as a remediation division, what we're requiring of people. Okay. The technical justification for 50/35 or implementing 50/35 is there's studies that have demonstrated that VOCs are lost when solid samples are collected in bulk. And that loss can be as large as 3 orders of magnitude. So it's a significant, when you're looking for volatiles in the ppb range and you're losing 3 orders of magnitude, that can be a significant loss. The suspected cause of the loss is that when you dig up the sample, you disrupt the soil structure, you increase the surface area from which volatilization can occur, and you introduce additional oxygen, which can trigger microbial replication. And the more exposed surface area is the more likelihood that you're going to have volatile loss due to volatilization. And the microbial growth, of course, is the increased likelihood of VOC loss via microbial degradation. And then also laboratory handling and subsampling and handling of a sample collected in bulk, because the laboratory has to open the bulk sample, dig out a subsample, they have to close the vial, put it into they have to weigh it, take it out, open it back up to put in surrogates. So it's opened and closed several times, and also, again, it's disturbed more and increased more oxygen in the sample. So that's where a lot of the loss occurs. Also, the loss can occur when the sample containers are not sealed properly. We have some division guidance on our webpage, and we follow pretty much 50/35 for collecting solid soils in VOA vials. We recommend that you don't use any preservative except to place a sample on ice immediately upon collection and keep it on ice until you get it to the laboratory. Once it gets to the laboratory, if it can't be analyzed within 48 hours, the lab is to freeze the sample, and that'll increase the holding time to 14 days. Also collect the samples in triplicate so that you have one sample to analyze, one sample to reanalyze in case you need it, and one sample to run a dilution in case you need it. And then also collect one bulk sample for percent moisture determination. Down at the bottom is the URL for where you can access the guidance document. And again, we'll be updating that guidance document to address some of the issues that your questions have raised that need to be addressed. So I believe that's it. Oh, no, sorry. Okay, so there's some special considerations, and these are considerations that we have taken into account based on the input we're getting from folks who are implementing this. One of the questions is, what do you do with highly unconsolidated matrix? That's like a sand or a fluff or a like fly ash, something that you can't get into a coring device. And what we recommend is you just use a spatula and you just turn the vial sideways and shovel it in, a clean spatula, and shovel it in. Before you do that, you should have a triple beam balance out in the field so you can kind of get an idea of what 5 grams would look like visually. And then you just scoop it in, and then you go and collect your sample by scooping it in, visually checking to see if you've got that volume in the vial, and then sealing the vial. For highly consolidated material, we recommend that you quickly reduce the particle size to the point that you can get it into the vial, and again, you visually estimate 5 grams. But I would take a triple beam balance out and practice like what 5 grams looks like, and then I'd collect my samples. Samples that you know are going to be high in concentration, or reasonably anticipated to be high in concentration, then you can collect those samples in bulk, because the laboratory will do a methanol extraction once it gets to the lab. If you do use chemical preservation in the field, if you opt to use that procedure, you'll need to check the transportation limitations and placarding requirements and handling requirements because of the hazard issue. Okay? I'm going to back up just one second. I covered it, okay. For those of you who haven't collected, I'm pretty sure most of you collected samples using 5035, but those who haven't, you should get a tiered. The system you get from your laboratory should have your vial should be tiered, and the tare weight should include the vial, the label, and the stir bar in the vial. So that's something you need to make sure of when you're handling the sample in the field. Make sure that you don't smudge the tare weight, because the laboratory needs that to determine how much sample you actually got into the vial. And all that your laboratory should be communicating to you as well, but those are some things to be aware of. I think that covers it. Well, that's all I have.